All right, good morning. Hopefully everybody got all the coffee, caffeine, everyone's ready. All right, so I'm Kyle Marx from ReaderLink. I'm going to give you just a brief agenda. So I'll give introduction of who I am, what my background is at ReaderLink. Then I'll talk a little about who ReaderLink is. Some of you have never heard of us before, so I'll explain about who ReaderLink is, what our past is, talk about our distribution network, how we provide books to our customers. And then I'll talk a little bit about our supply chain investments. So we've made a lot of investments the last 5 years in the supply chain. So I'll talk about what we've done, what it's meant to ReaderLink, and then I'll kind of give you the background of how we do things. So from the time a book is created from the publisher and all that content to the time it gets to the end store, I'll explain that whole process. And stop us along the way. If you've got any questions or comments, just and we'll have Q&A at the end. But if you've got questions along the way, please send them through. So a brief introduction about me. So my name is Kyle Marx, Executive Vice President of Supply Chain Planning and Enterprise Analytics. It's a long name, but at the end of it, what it means is I'm responsible for all the inventory planning, forecasting, analytics, business intelligence for the company. Been with ReaderLink for 16 years in total. I also had six years in the hotel industry, but my entire time is spent on supply chain. So I can spend a lot of time talking about supply chain. It's a lot of fun. Some of it's probably boring, but it's fun at the end of the day. I've done 2 ERP installs. So I've done a lot of leading up installs on SAP and Microsoft Dynamics. So a lot of background there, as well as inventory management, forecasting tools. So Agility and Blue Yonder. Some of you maybe heard of those companies, but they are really big software vendors in various spaces of supply chain. So I've done 2 of those installs. And I've been fortunate enough to go overseas and do these installs at our Europe division when I was in the hotel industry, as well as over in Australia and Asia Pac. So it's been fun, challenging to say the least, but it's been nice to see how software and supply chain has evolved over time. Also, because of our responsibility, I'm in charge of all the BI. So all the enterprise reporting we do for the company, I've done two implementations on BI software and solutions for our customers, and 1 cloud data warehouse implementation. So my ReaderLink info is up there, or my LinkedIn info is up there. If you want to just LinkedIn me, you got questions, comments, please shoot them over. So who is ReaderLink? So ReaderLink is one of the largest book distributors in the United States. We do handle between roughly 17 to 35% of the market on the trade side. Some of the big items, big authors, we do probably more volume than other items, but that's where our sweet spot is. Our customers are basically any customer that is not a traditional bookstore. So Target, Costco, Walmart, BJ's Wholesale Club out in the East Coast, Sam's Club, all the airports. So if you see a Hudson newsstand or Parodies in an airport, that's coming from us. We work with over 400 different publishers. Obviously, the big 5 are significant volume of that, but we do have a lot of publishing partners we work with. We have 350 unique retailers we deal with, and over about 100,000 stores we ship to. So a lot of stores, a lot of footprint that we have to deal with. We do about $3.5 billion a year of MSRP. It's over 300 million units. So we process a lot of units throughout our network. And we also have about 10,000 merchandisers that are in the stores who are putting the books up on the shelves. So those are not our employees. They used to be, but we decided to deal with third parties now going forward with that. But those merchandisers are out there every day, working the grind and putting those books up on the shelves. So we do have about 24,000 unique titles that we distribute each year. As you know, in the book industry, there's constantly new products coming out every single week, every single month. And so, and I'll explain a little bit about this in a couple slides later about how our retailers pick what products they select. Because unlike Barnes & Noble, who have huge footprints, a lot of these retailers only have a small amount of space. So they have to find the best of the best content because they have limited time and limited space on those shelves. So that's who ReaderLink is. So our distribution network. So we have 5 corporate offices. Our headquarters are located just outside Chicago in Oak Brook, Illinois. But we have 5 offices scattered. You'll notice that they're kind of tied into some of our retailers. So up in Minneapolis, we have an office next to Target. We have an office down in Bentonville, Arkansas, next to Walmart. A lot of providers of those companies have offices there. And then our distribution network. So we have a distribution center in Salt Lake City. We're down over by Denton, Texas, close to Dallas. We're down in Atlanta area, Roanoke, Salem, Virginia. And then we have 2 facilities in Illinois. So those facilities are shipping books throughout the United States, either directly to the retailer or to their distribution center. We have about 2.5 million square feet of space between all these facilities. And most of them now are outbound only. We do have a couple facilities that handle the returns as well. So I want to talk a little bit about our investment in supply chain. So back in 2018, ReaderLink went on an assessment of all the different software that's out there to make us a better company in terms of supply chain execution, cutting costs, reducing labor costs, reducing returns. I know none of us like returns in this industry. So trying to find ways of having better software to handle how we handle supply chain. So in 2019, we made this selection and we went with a company called Blue Yonder. They are, if you've never heard of them, they do a lot of software across warehouse management solutions, transportation management, inventory planning, planogram building, and we selected them to do all of our supply chain software. At the same time, we decided we needed a new ERP system. So a brand new financial system that handle all of our order to cash, accounts receivable, accounts payable, and so that we use Microsoft Dynamics for that. So they're a software called Finance and Operations. And so from 2019 to 2023, painstaking 4 years of work to bridge the gap between the ERP solution and all the supply chain solutions. And we went live last year. So last year in February, we went live with all the inventory management, category management, and ERP functions. And then we are going live in 2025 with all of our warehouses. So we wanted to space that out. We didn't want to it was bad enough, I'll say at least, to go live with all of that at one time. So we wanted to wait on our warehouses to go live until 2025. But we're launching with our first distribution center in January. So it's been a whirlwind to say the least, dealing with these software vendors. I think the one thing unique that we've found, especially Blue Yonder, is that the book category is very different from other categories they've dealt with. They deal with manufacturers, they deal with retailers. Walmart is actually one of their customers. But in this industry, there's so many unique products that happen so frequently and such short life cycle. They were not used to that. So we've had to build a lot of custom modifications with Blue Yonder to handle the book category. So we challenge them every day and they're not happy with us, but it works. So I want to talk a little bit about how we handle product to placement in the stores. I think it's just kind of be a walkthrough of what we do and how we handle the content and how it gets onto the final shelf. So the first step in the process is that books are introduced in the marketplace, whether it's Macmillan, Penguin Random House, Scholastic, all the publishers you had heard earlier, they're introducing new content. Once the content is created in the marketplace, then what will happen is our publishers will go into our portal and they'll set up all the item metadata. So the category, the price, how many pages are in the book, the size of the book, the weight, the dimensions, because all that content is important for how then we decide how we're going to put it through our supply chain and onto the end retailer's shelf. So once we have the item and all of its content, we have all these algorithms. We use all this machine learning and AI to do what we call attribute-based matching to find the best other products that match this new product to determine what the comps are going to be. So when John Grisham comes out with a new book, we look at all the categorizations of that metadata, and then we scan all the other items in our database to find the like products that are specific to that retailer, because not all retailers sell the same content. So Target has different items than Walmart, than Costco, than Sam's Club. So we do that to find the best holistic grouping of items to use for modeling the new product. Once we have what products and what the data says in terms of the forecast of those items, we'll then have our marketing team go and present those items to the retailers and say, hey, we think in the next month, these are the best 100 books you should put on your shelf. And here's the reasons why. So our marketing group will take all this data and then summarize it to share with our retailers. Once they have that, then our planogram, we have an engine that then will take whatever items are selected for that retailer, and they'll go through this planogram engine to then figure out, okay, well, what store should get what products? Because not every item is going to go into every store. Because if you've shopped, I'm sure some of you have probably shopped at a Target or a Walmart or a Costco, some of those book departments are really big. They're 200-foot departments. Some of them are only 10-foot departments. So not every item can go into every single store. So this optimization engine we have will look at where is that retailer at? Are they in the Northeast? Are they in the Southeast? What books work better in those markets? How big are the shelves? To determine what books should go into those locations. So after we run it through this engine to determine what items should go into what locations, we will then actually merchandise them onto a physical or virtual planogram because we need those virtual planograms so then we give to those 10,000 merchandisers to put the books on the shelf. So we have a tool we built called ReaderLink. And what it is, the handheld devices, it gives the merchandisers a digital readout of the entire planogram. So when all the books show up in the back room at Target or at Walmart or Costco, they can look at this planogram and then know what specific pocket those items are supposed to go in. Every item has a home. So it's not like if you ever go into these stores and you see the item on the shelf, it's not like they're just magically putting it wherever they want to. Every item has a specific place that has to go onto that location. It's a lot of work for the merchandisers. You're asking a lot of part-time employees that maybe have 10 stores they're responsible for to do this every single week. I'm not sure if you've ever been to a back room of a retailer location, but it is messy and there's product everywhere. So they have to find the books in the back of the store, bring those books out onto their carts into the store, and then put them up on those specific locations. So it's a lot of work for them. So that's how we handle from the product creation to the placement into the stores. And doing this, we have over 300 million data points used to determine this whole process. So from all the historical sales data, the shipment data, the returns data, all the planogram information, we use all this data every day to do this. We're a highly analytical company. While publishing and in this industry in general, there's a lot of content and creation. At the core of what we do is using all the analytics and machine learning to drive how we get to a lower return rate and higher sales, better in stocks. And we can't do it without having the data. So we have a lot of data we use every day. So now that we've decided what items are going to go into what planograms, into what retailers, now we have to actually buy the physical product from the publisher. So how does that work? So we cut the purchase order from the vendor because we know that these items are located in these stores and those stores are connected to what part of the market geographically. So based on all our 6 distribution centers, we now know how much product we have to bring into each location. So we'll cut the orders with the publisher and then you'll print the product. And when the product is printed, sometimes it will either go directly to us or sometimes it will go from the publisher to us. There's a lot of dependencies there. How important it is that we need that product fast. Is it a backlist title? Is it a frontlist title? There's a lot of decision-making process that we have with the publishers to decide how the content comes to us, but we do both. And I'll get into later slides about the information we need from the printers to give us better information up front. But in our world, it's all about just-in-time delivery and speed to market. Because in the book industry, as you know, items don't last very long. There's backlists, obviously, but on the frontlist side, because there's this limited space in these retailers, if we don't get it right in the first 4 to 5 weeks, we're done. The titles, it's on a declining sales curve. The next title's coming in, they're on to the next product. So if we don't get it right in those first 4 or 5 weeks, we're dead in the water. So now that we've got the product that's come into our facility, we will then create the sales order specific to each store. We don't create orders to the retailer's distribution center. We do what we call VMI, so vendor managed inventory. So we are creating store-specific orders for every single item for every location. Some of the customers will transmit sales orders to us. Most of the customers, though, we will generate the order suggestions to the actual store. Once we have the order, we will then either pack those orders out, either going directly to the store via parcel, UPS parcel. We'll either ship truckload or less than truckload, and it can go a couple different ways. We can either go flow it through the retailer's distribution center for big shipments, large shipments, Target, Walmart, we'll flow it through their distribution centers, but the orders are picked and packed store specific. It's not a retailer DC order. It is store specific. If we don't flow it through their DCs, we will also ship it directly to the store. So for example, when a brand new title comes out, so that new John Grisham book that comes out and it's hot in the market and we want to make sure that we're not having out of stock issues, we'll ship books directly to the store because it cuts the lead time by about 2 weeks. So anytime we flow inventory through the retailer's distribution network, it's obviously flowing with a lot more than just books, clothes, CPG products, anything you name it. So it takes a long time to flow through their network. So we'll oftentimes try to go through the retailer's stores directly via UPS. That way the books are on the shelf as fast as possible to resupply to limit how many out of stocks there are. Once the product is at the store, we will then have, as mentioned, those 10,000 merchandisers will put the books on the shelf. using their handheld devices to tell them where the content should go onto the individual location. And then for once the product is done and is no longer selling, we will then have all the unsold product come back to us. Retailers will package that product and they'll ship it back to our facilities where we will either destroy it, ship it back to the publisher. We have a very extensive reverse logistics network that we'll use to get that product where it needs to be on the return side. Again, with the whole goal of limiting returns as much as possible. So that's how we handle the network as a whole from start to finish. Any questions before I go into the forecasting side of things? Yeah.
I'm curious. When Costco in Madison, New Jersey is out of a certain book, and you know that Costco in Edison, New Jersey has 8 copies of that, is there some sort of system inside of all of this to transport the book from Edison back to Madison, or you're out of stock? How's that work?
That's a good question. So retailers do not transfer books between stores. So if they're out of stock in that location, they're out of stock, even if they have inventory in some other place. They don't want to deal with the cost of having to maneuver that inventory. You think about, especially the Q4 in the retailer industry here, they are very busy. Their DCs are very busy right now. So when product gets backed up, that's the last thing we want, especially because of the short life cycle. We have to have that product on the shelf. So they do not want to transfer. We do transfer internally in our network. So if we notice that we're overstocked in our Salt Lake City facility, we'll initiate weekly transfers to move inventory throughout our network. We don't do it extensively, but we'll do it when necessary to avoid having to reorder more from the publisher, because at the end of the day, we don't want to end up what we call killing mint returns later on. We try to minimize that as much as possible. But yeah, retailers do not transfer between stores.
So, trying to convince Costco or Target or Walmart to carry more books to increase the size of their category, is that your job? Is that the publisher? Who's taking the lead on trying to get more books on the shelves?
I would say it's a joint effort between publisher and ReaderLink to convince these retailers that they should carry more books. I will tell you, some of these retailers they've gone gung-ho on books lately. You look at like book talk, romantasy, the whole thing going on. There's Taylor Swift is everywhere right now. You hear about Taylor Swift. They're jumping on the bandwagon. And if the category is doing well and growing in market share, then they'll invest more in the category. But we are oftentimes, what we'll find these retailers do is they change out their buyers. Some retailers change out their buyers quite often. A buyer may only be at that category for a couple of years, and they're moving on to a completely different category. We've seen a book buyer who then goes into the apparel category or goes into some other entertainment category at these retailers. So we've gotten really good at presenting to these retailers a books 101 and just how books work, how the category is. Back from 2008 to 2015, when ebooks were starting, there was a lot of concern from these retailers on, with it going all digital, does that mean I don't need to carry physical books anymore? So we had to for that time period to really explain to them, books are not dead. The industry is growing. Here's the market share. Here's ebook versus print book. And so, yeah, we spent a lot of time with publishers going and explaining to them the category as a whole and that it's meaningful. But you're right, though. We have, especially in the last 5 years, with so much focus on food. You hear it all the time. Food and grocery is the number one thing these retailers are focused on. So we have to explain to them how don't give up too much space, because they'll want to initiate more space into food and grocery than to what they call general merchandise.
So you talked about the unsold product and returns. What happens to that? Is it a circular economy, or what do you do with those materials?
It's a little bit of everything. So some of it we will have come back to our facility that we will then restock and redeploy for future use if it's an evergreen type item. Sometimes we'll have it destroyed at our facilities, and then we have credit initiation with our publishers that allow us to then get the credit from them, and then we'll take that pulp and then sell it off to recycled location. Or we'll have the publishers, they'll ask us to then take the content, full copy, and return it back to them if they want to sell it on the third-party marketplace. So it's one of those 3 ways. Yep. I'd say more recently, from the whole sustainability perspective, and publishers also asking us to do more of the shredding concept, because they find that certain items, they don't need to put it back in the marketplace. It maybe won't sell. It's older product. So we'll do the shredding and then bale it off for pulp. Oh. Any questions before I move on? All right. All right, next slide. So want to talk about how we handle sales and forecasting, because at the core of what we do, having good forecasts will then lead to better inventory, better in stocks, and less returns that come back from the retailers to us. So every single day, we have 17 million store item locations that are what I call active, meaning they're actively planning. So you think about all these retailers and all the Walmart has 4,000 stores, Target has 1,800 stores. So you think about every single item in every store, we have to build a forecast that is store item specific and then summarize that to be able to then determine how much inventory we should buy and keep planning on an ongoing basis. So I'm not sure if Jonathan's still here, but I put the House of Flame and Shadow up here because that was Macmillan's book. So a little plug for them. But how it works is, so we build this forecast that's store item specific. And what we'll do is we will forecast at that level, but then we'll also forecast at the item level for that customer. Not sure how many of you have had forecasting experience before, but when you forecast at a higher level, it's a lot more accurate than when you forecast at a very low level. So we'll forecast that item across all 1,800 Target stores, and then we'll allocate that forecast down to each store based on how that store is doing as a percentage of the total. We do that every single week. So every single week for these 17 million locations, we'll reforecast and then make decisions based on what the data tells us. We do provide a forecast that goes 12 months out, although I will tell you in the book industry, not many items last 12 months. So most items have about a 12 to 20 week life cycle in our customers. So we'll forecast for that time period. Some items do last very long, but like I said, very rare. One nice thing about the new software we've recently invested with Blue Yonder is it also takes into account lost sales. So our customers ask us this every day. They say, what are my in stocks? Did I lose sales? Why did I not get the sales I needed? So this new software, every day it looks at daily on hands. So anytime the store item location goes out of stock, our system triggers lost sales to add back in. So that way, when the next new item comes out and we're using that item as a comp, we're not using actual sales, we're using the actual sales plus lost sales. So our retailers have been really happy with that. None of us like lost sales, but at least it gives context to when we then plan the next item that we plan better. We also do a lot of what we call lifts. So a lot of these retailers do a lot of buy one, get one free. Target just did the recent Circle Week. I'm not sure how many of you shop at Target, but they had this, they call it Circle Week, usually 2-3 times a year. They will discount all their items across all their categories. And when they do that, if we don't have the lift planned, we will never have enough inventory either in our DCs or forecasting to the publishers to have available for us. So we put these lifts into our system. System plans for it, pre-plans for it, and that way we have the supply available when needed. So once we have all this POS forecast, POS history, and forecast built, then we have to determine how much inventory we have in our stores to support those sales. So we have, by these 17 million locations, we build up safety stock and weeks of supply to make sure they have adequate supply on the shelves, but then we also have a presentation minimum. They want to make sure that every pocket has enough presence on the shelf. Sometimes we will vary that by location. Some items will have 5 or 6 books on the shelf as a presentation minimum. Some will be 1 or 2. But again, we're trying to be mindful of the returns because, like we said before, none of us like the returns. Once we have these store level safety stock policies and build this up to our distribution network, we then have weeks of supply and safety stock algorithms in our distribution center that tells our publishers how much we want to hold on any given day. So that's how we handle the forecasting with our retailers and upstream to our vendors. Yeah, question? Yeah.
Like with the really hot bestseller, we thought like a makeup of Michelle Obama's book, right? So there's potentially millions that are going to get sold in a really short period of time. You've already got your investments in your forecasting process for your existing products. So how do you make room for Michelle Obama's book when you've already got it pretty hardwired for everything else?
So we plan 13 weeks in advance on what items are going to be on the shelf. So by this planogram engine that does all the assortment optimization, the publishers will inform us that this new book is coming out 13 weeks from now. And then we will make forecast based on forecasted demand across all those individual products. We will then decide, okay, there's this big Michelle Obama book. It needs 3 facings. It needs a whole shelf. And the marketing team will go through all those analytics to determine what else should come out or what needs to get moved to a different location in the store to get ready for those new products.
So how do you work that with the competing publishers, right? Because whoever published Obama's book, that's different than the other big publishers. They're working with you on their. Yeah, they've already got this stuff planned. I got to believe that's that's a big challenge for every week.
It is. Yeah, our marketing team. So when between all the publishers that bring us content, every week, every month, they go through these things called line reviews. So line review will be usually 3 months in advance. What are all the new products coming out in the industry? Some don't work well in our category or at our retailers. Some work really well. There's certain categories, like a textbook will not do well right inside of a Target, but a brand new romantasy book, absolutely. So they'll take all this content that comes across all these publishers and figure out based on these algorithms that look at the comps and look at based on the categorization of that book to determine, okay, which of these items across these publishers should we put into these retailers? It's not perfect by any means. I mean, there's certain times we may have missed an item. One of the things our retailers do with us every week is we look at market share data. So we take between all of our customers versus Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target wants to know what items did they not take that did well in the market. And so we have to then go, okay, should Target then go chase this item? Or do we now know next time an item of that kind of caliber or category should they go after? So we call it gap analysis. We look at that every single week at the retailers because they want to know not only what other retailers are doing that they didn't do, but they do want to know what else Amazon and Barnes & Noble are doing. Because Target sees Barnes & Noble and Amazon as their biggest competitor. They want to beat them. That's why when they did that Target Circle Week, they were trying to discount their books just as much or heavier than Amazon because they want to grow share. They all want to grow share. So, all right. So regarding forecasting, so we have three main methods in which we forecast. So evergreen items, like I said, not a ton, but especially the kids category, Dr. Seuss books, Wimpy Kid, Dog Man, items that have been around for a long time. We have models in our system that look at the last 52 weeks of sale, builds out seasonal profiles, and every single week, based on the latest trend, the system will auto-correct itself and auto-adjust based on what that trend is showing. Then we have items that have been around for less than 52 weeks. So an item that maybe has been out there for 12 or 13 weeks, selling well in the market, looks like it's going to continue. We build seasonal profiles. Again, the system will auto-correct as the trend is seen. And then for new products, like I said, we have about probably 100 to 200 new items a week that we're sending out in the marketplace. So we have new item lifecycle curves that look at all the comps. What did that last John Grisham book do at that specific store for that specific item? Model off of that and then build these curves based on that. So that's how we handle forecasting. So what does our collaboration look like with our publishers? So we have current state. We obviously get all the item metadata, which is critical to success to have all the right attributes of the product, like a page count, dimensions, all that information. But then recently, we're happy. We went to New York. We met with Macmillan and PRH and a few others in May to present that we've now deployed October 1st. We deployed a brand new publisher portal that gives the publishers full access to everything. POS history. We're giving them outbound sales order forecasts. We're giving them demand forecasts, purchase order forecasts. We want to give the publishers more information to help them make better decisions or more informed decisions of the type of inventory that we need to support the business. So that we just rolled out and we're excited about that. We also have a brand new web-based purchase order application. So while we transmit all the orders with the publisher via EDI, we want them to tell us when something is going to be late or going to be delayed because ASNs only give you when something's shipping. It doesn't tell you when something's not shipping. So this new web-based application allows our publishers to come in and tell us, this is delayed and here's the reason why. Is it backed up by the printer? Is it delayed at a port, whatever it might be? So it gives us more of a collaborative way in which we can share purchase order data and when it's going to be arriving at our facilities. And then kind of future state, things we started to think about is, can our publishers share with us what they have on hand in their facilities? Today, we tell them what we have on hand, but not what they have on hand. So more collaboration there. And then also we want them to give us their forecasts so we can compare our forecast to their forecast. So we are making more informed decision and making sure we get the product in the right place at the right time. So what are measures of success? So between us, the publishers and the retailers, it's at the end of the day, we just want to drive efficiencies and drive sales through what we call excellence in supply chain. So from the ReaderLink perspective, we measure our success based on our fill rate to our customers, our inventory turns. We want to turn that inventory as fast as we can. Mint returns are important. So a mint return is product that never got shipped out to a customer that we then ship back to the publisher. No one likes mint returns, but it's the nature of what we do. We've done a really good job of getting that down over the last 5 years, especially with the new software. And then the other big thing is average lines per PO. The more product we can put on one PO, the faster we can get product to market to our customers. On the retailer side, they do not like returns just as much as we don't, or the publishers. So we are really looking at store level returns. That has come down. We hit a 5-year low last year. So we're very excited about the return rates and bringing that down, especially for sustainability. But they're very important. Inventory turns are very important to them because, as you mentioned, they're competing with other categories. So if their turns are not good, they would look at another category versus books. And then I said in stocks. If a book is not in stock, we get yelled at from them. So and they measure it based on a book on the shelf. So if there's not one unit on the shelf, they're out of stock. And then on the publisher side, we're really stressing the importance of on time. As Jonathan said, getting the product faster to market, faster lead times, lowering the lead times. We need that product as fast as possible to, number one, make it available to our customers and grow sales. But we do measure the publishers a lot on inbound on-time performance as well as their fill rate. So if we ordered 1,000 units on this item, did we get 1,000? Did we get 900? Did we get 800? That's how we measure success with our publishers. So last slide. So requests from us to you. So one thing we talked, when we were in New York back in May, we spent a lot of time talking about advanced shipping notices, ASNs. And because a lot of the new content that comes out is bindery shipped from the bindery, sometimes directly to us, we found that there's a struggle sometimes with getting all the ASN data because we need to know, when is that product coming? Is it all coming? We need to be able to tell our DC network that here's when it's coming, here's the carrier, here's the pro number. And oftentimes when we talk with our publishers, they tell us that sometimes it's difficult to get that data from the binderies. So anything you can do to help us get ASNs faster and more complete, the better off we will all be in the supply chain to deliver that content to the end customer. And the other thing too is item level pallet multiples. If we can order items in pallet multiples, and that may not be every item, but as many items as possible where it makes sense, then when we trigger orders to the vendor, to the publisher, and they're in multiples of a pallet, then when it comes into our facility, it's much faster to receive a full pallet versus a mixed pallet. We can get that right into the floor and available for picking to ship to our end customer. And then I won't go through the details, but we have a routing ad out there we share with our publishers all the time. But cartons, packing labels, carton dimensions, shipping labels, all those things, anything you can do to help make sure that is up to standard, and then we'll have the product available and ready for a customer as soon as possible. That was a lot in 30 minutes. Matt's yelling at me back there. Go faster.
You're fine. No, you're absolutely fine. So we do have time for questions, though. Yep. Okay. Ashley, then Bill.
I'll try to make this one only have like 6 parts instead of 42. You were talking about the forecasting, fill rates, trying to be integrated, throughout the supply chain. Are any of your publishers actually integrating all the way to the printer? So I've got a book, it took off on Book Talk. We're about to be losing sales. I don't have any in my inventory. Is there an automated replenishment process that triggers all the way back to the printer?
Not that I'm aware of right now, but I think that's the future state, is how do we, now that we have these new systems, this Blue Yonder system that gives us this forward-looking view on demand forecasts, sales order forecasts, purchase order forecasts, how do we give this to the publishers in advance and then trigger that process further upstream? I know we're only one client of the vendor, right? They've got Amazon, they have Barnes & Noble. So I'm assuming they've got to take all of our data with all the others before they go back to print. And so I'm not sure how much they use all that data to make those decisions, but we're definitely marching in that direction with all this new data that we have.
And this would be like an EDI feed maybe that goes all the way?
Yeah. So right now it's just via this portal, but we've talked about in 2025, we are going to be using APIs to send the data direct. They can call the API and get all this forecast data they can integrate back into their system. They're very excited. The big five are very excited about it. When we launched this new publisher portal this year, that was their first thing, is that instead of us going into your portal to get all this data, this forecast data, can you send it to us directly? And so that's what we're going to be doing next year, is allowing them to hook into it directly and then send through their systems to then help automate their forecasting process on their side.
And you said that now you're capturing lost sales. And that's actually something that was a big black hole for trying to build just-in-time inventory, print on demand, that whole movement. We all knew that there were sales being lost because of out-of-inventory positions, but we couldn't measure them. So could you explain, are they guessing that, the book was selling at a certain momentum over 5 hours and then we ran out, and so we are assuming it would have continued to sell? How are they capturing those lost sales?
So every day we get daily on hands. So every day for every store, every item, we get the on hands in that store. Now, we don't know if it's physically on the shelf or in the back room. That we don't have RFID tags on these books, so we would never know. But if the on hand goes to 0, we know what the forecast was for that week. We then convert it to a daily forecast. So in that store for that item, if they were out of stock 6 of those days of that week, then we add 6 days of forecast back in as the lost sales. So it's been very interesting to look at the data. We've scaled it back a little bit because it's been getting too aggressive. And we've talked to other retailers that use Blue Yonder, and they say they will take not the full lost sales, they'll take half of it. Because sometimes if you overstate lost sales, then you're going to trigger way too much in the marketplace. So we've kind of looked at it both ways.
Fascinating stuff. 2 questions. First one is, Costco made a statement some time ago that they were going to pull back on books because of manpower and restocking. I think they walked that back a little bit. At least that's what I've heard. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Sure. I don't know how much I can fully share, but I'll try as much as I can at this point. Yeah, we're actually going out to see them in November. They're definitely staying in the category. They're staying with books. As of right now, they're going to have 100 locations that will be in books all year. And then the rest of the locations will be in books from September through December. So that's, as of right now, that's what we know. And so right now our big strategy is for the 580 or so locations between now and end of December, we want to maximize sales as much as possible. But for those locations that are not continuing, we want to make sure we minimize returns. So it's trying to find that balancing act of sales as strong as possible, but not having too much come back, because none of us like returns. So,
second question is, I think everybody in the room will acknowledge that data reporting in book sales is atrocious. That is, AAP and Circana, whatever they call themselves these days, there's just no good data. It seems to me you've got a cache of data that the industry really needs. Do you have a plan for that? To share it? Please.
So I mean, we get daily POS for every store, every item. So we're collecting about 10 million records a day. It's absurd. It's a lot of information, and this is why we had to build a cloud data warehouse to support this. We use all that to make all these decisions. We're trying to make it available more to the publishing side. How they intend to share that on the printer side, that'd probably be for them and you to decide. But yeah, we do a ton of data analysis on not just the POS, but shipment data, returns data, and then we actually use that Circana data, NPD book scan, change your name 25 times. But we use that data as well to then assess the marketplace and the trends that we're seeing. And I feel like we've done a pretty good job of leveraging all this information. We've partnered with Microsoft and some other third parties of them. We're doing a ton of things in Python and Databricks and all these AI tools out there to harness this data. Well, there's a lot more to go. We're actually just starting to take the AI. We were talking AI earlier. We are now building out a web-based application where instead of just running reports, you ask it a narrative question, which has been out there for a little bit, but ask a narrative question and have that data come back to you. And we're able to take those 300 million records in about milliseconds, report back that information now through AI. So that's been a really big win for us.
Kyle, your data is part of the book scan data though, right? In terms of sales.
So actually it's interesting. So even though we do get all that data, Circana does not go through us. they get it directly from all the retailers. So Circana collects that data from the we used to provide it from us to Circana, but now Circana gets it directly from the retailers.
I think the average return rate in the industry is still somewhere around 30%. You talk about your return rate. Is it much lower? About the same?
We actually just got it under 30 for the very first time this last year. So we're very excited about this new system. We're not done yet. We have a long way to go, but we just hit an all-time low this last fiscal year. So Dennis Aboud, who's our president CEO, owns a company. He was ecstatic to see where we're going. But like I said, we're trying to use all this forecast data and learn. We've only been live for a little over a year and a half now. So we have a lot more to learn from it. But we're constantly tweaking not just the algorithms, but even those presentation minimums. Some of these stores at an individual store item level cannot sell a lot of books, but they have to have a presence on the shelf. So trying to tweak how much we set as those pres mins at an individual store item level, that's our next evolution, is to make sure that we keep reducing that return as much as possible. Not just from the store to us, but also those mint returns from us back to the publisher.
Incredibly complicated, and thank you for what you do. John talked a little bit about independent bookstores, right? The number of, and brick and mortar growing. Are your overall sales, are there more books in your network being sold?
Yeah, it is growing for sure. Yeah, I mean, Costco, obviously, we'll see what happens with Costco, but Target and Walmart, they are, especially Target. Target is really into this category. I think they just announced the highest growth market share in their entire, as a retailer that happened last year. That was a big deal. So they're all in right now. I'm not sure if anyone heard, but Taylor Swift has a book coming out that they just announced that's unique to Target. And that right now is flowing through our distribution network. It's a lot of books, a lot of trucks, a lot of books, and a lot of excitement right now with them. But all of our retailers, I'd say, are very invested in the category. As they've seen what's happened in entertainment with music and movies over the years, right? They've said, well, our book's going to follow suit. Obviously, very different from those two other categories. So they've definitely reallocated space from those other entertainment categories to books lately. So it's been a nice trend.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Kyle. Really appreciate it.